Hello, Salon Republic family. My name is Amanda Belian, and I am so excited to be here with you. For those of you who know me, my Instagram handle is at SF Hair Society, and I am a education. I am on the educational team with Schwarzkopf Professional. So I am very, very excited today to be here with you. I've taught another live on this platform, and I've also done some in-person classes with some of you guys, and you are all very near and dear to my heart because, like you, I am also a studio suite owner, and I totally understand some of the challenges that arise with spacing issues, but also love the journey of growing my individual brand behind the chair um, in my studio space. So I always love hanging out with all of you guys. You always have the best questions. So a little bit about me. I am a lived-in color specialist based out of San Francisco. I have been a hairstylist for 17 years, which always sounds very weird to say out loud. But today we are going to be talking about some techniques about going darker and how to do fast applications of adding some dimension while going darker. And we're going to be utilizing the TBH line, which is one of my favorite lines within the Schwarzkopf portfolio. It's what I use primarily behind the chair for a couple of reasons. One, it's a multidimensional line, so it allows for a lot of reflection and highs and lows. So you get this beautiful dimensional look, which mirrors a lot of my lived-in color looks. So if you are a lived-in color specialist, I feel like this is kind of the line for you. We're going to be showcasing how and why throughout the class. And also I love it is it's super versatile. It can be mixed in 3 different ways for 3 different performances. And it can also be it's a very compact boutique line, so it doesn't take up a lot of space, which I think that all of us can agree as studio suite owners. We really want to maximize the space that we have, and having a massive line isn't always realistic. So in the chat box, I want you guys to type in if you guys have heard of TBH or if you guys have used it, and what your experience has been. And I might be able to answer some of those comments as they come in throughout the class. But today, like I said, we are going to be talking about going darker. So I know that sometimes as we've gone through the blonding phases of our generations, sometimes clients come in with really porous hair or overly lightened hair and they want to go a little darker, but taking time out of our chair to do multiple steps of filling is really difficult. And so I want to showcase how to fill and deposit in one step, which sometimes can be a missed opportunity. I don't know if any of you guys remember, but back in the day, it used to be, you had to pre-fill the hair with like levels with straight yellow, straight orange, and straight red, depending on what level you were going back down to fill that in with permanent hair color, rinse that out, dry the client, go back in, color and neutralize those really raw, bright pigments, and then go back through and then do your actual color service. And I think that color nowadays, the technology has gotten so good and the pigment weight in the color lines are so good that we don't actually have to do all of those steps leading up. We can do it all in one just by mixing our color properly. So I'm going to showcase how to do that now. So this is going to be our mannequin today. So I did some pre-done work on her last night. So we're going to be utilizing the whole head, which I'm really excited about because I don't always do that in my classes. I sometimes only get to work on half of the head. So I'm really excited to be able to utilize the whole head today and showcase all of the different techniques that we're going to be doing. And then let me know if you can see her properly. I have a ring light in here, so you should be able to see the brightness and difference between the two. So as you can see, there are 2 different sides to this mannequin. And this is the side that I pre-filled for you, and I'm going to showcase how to do the application on the pre-fill. But I wanted to really show you how light she started off with, and then how rich and beautiful we got with just the pre-fill. It's a really rich, beautiful color. And I actually used ash tones in this formulation, which I was really excited to do. I wanted you to feel empowered to be able to achieve even ashy tones, even though you're coming from such a light color. And we're going to talk about how we did that. So I utilized the TBH line. And if you've used the TBH line before, or you know a little bit about it, it can be mixed in multiple different ways. And I used our tone softening formulation, which is mixed with the permanent hair color. So the color that goes in the tube. TBH has up to 50% less ammonia when compared to our permanent hair color line. So it's a much more gentle line, which is what's going to give you those highs and lows in dimension as it's depositing color. And because it has up to 50% less ammonia, the alkalinity is lower and you can manipulate it to act different ways. So that's why we are able to do that. So I mixed our permanent hair color with 1 part of our 6 volume activator lotion. So because it's 6 volume, 1.9%, it lowers that alkalinity, lowers that ammonia content in the tube of color to start acting a little bit more gentle in the hair. And then I took our tone softener, which can be a little confusing to people, but I kind of want you guys to think about the tone softener as just like a demi additive with conditioning agents. So this also has a much lower pH. So it's going to drop down that alkalinity and ammonia content in the tube of color. But it has care ingredients. So it has macadamia nut, shea butter, and argan oil, which all enhance shine and condition of the hair. So it's kind of like adding in a conditioning agent while still staying on the same molecular level as the color. So back in the day, there was there was some techniques that would say when you were done with your root touch-up, you could just mix conditioner in the formulation and just pull it through the ends. But what that does is it actually fills the hair in weird ways, and it doesn't always deposit properly because it's not on the same molecular level as the color. So this is kind of the best of both worlds. It stays on the same level as it acts like a hair color, but it's just a conditioning agent. So what that's going to do is it's going to treat it like a demi. So it's deposit only and no lift. And then for this formulation, I really wanted to make sure that she stayed well balanced. So you always want to add in a warm tone when you are filling hair and going darker, and you're doing it in 1 step. So I added in 1 part of our 7-47. And TBH is really cool because it's able to visually check what series you're using by the color of the box. So in our warm tones, they're always going to come in a kind of a pink colored box, and they have a W next to them. So this is a level 7 beige copper. I did 1 part that to 2 parts 7-06, which is going to be our natural with a chocolate undertone. Then the chocolate has kind of a copper reflect to it. So again, enhancing that warm tonality in the hair as we're going a little darker to stay balanced. And then again, 2 parts 7-16, which is considered our cool. And it's in this kind of periwinkle color, and it has a C next to it. And it's a level 7, and then a cendré, which is a blue violet, and then chocolate again. So we have lots of warm tones, but it still has some ash in there, and it stays really, really nice and balanced. The -16 series are some of my favorite for all of my clients because it's really rich and has like a smoky undertone to it. So it's just this beautiful, rich color that doesn't have too much reflection if clients don't really like that. Okay. So if you have any questions about the formulation, please feel free to type it into the chat box. But as you can see, she looked really nice and beautiful, really nice and rich. And I only deposited that formulation for 10 minutes on this section. So I'm going to go in and pre-spray her with some hair primer, because the hair primer, what that's going to do is it's going to fill in the outer pockets of the cuticle cortex, because people who are blonde tend to have a bit of porosity issues. And it's going to also neutralize any mineral buildup in the hair. You can just do a couple little light sprays in the hair. And it's just really helpful when someone has porosity issues. And I'm going to comb through, make sure she's nice and even. Get these clips out of my way. And we're just going to deposit this like a all over color. It's really nice and easy. You can put this on wet or dry hair. I tend to, when I'm filling, do it on dry hair just because I want the strongest amount of deposit with the hair. But if someone has super porous hair and you're kind of afraid of them going darker, you can put it on damp hair. Just make sure it's not soaking wet to overly fill the cuticle. I put my gloves on and my drape. Go in and get started. So we're going to start from the bottom and work our way up. And that way we have like nice clean sections as we are working through. And then here is my formulation. So if you can tell, this side of the liquid is going to be our 6-volume activator lotion. And this side, the thicker, creamier side, is going to be our tone softener. Have a little bit thicker consistency, and I think that kind of helps aid the conditioning agent as we're depositing color on porous hair. And like I said, I really love this line for a lot of different types of clients, mostly because I'm a lived-in color specialist, but secondly, because it's so conditioning to the hair. So I use this as my toning service quite often after I've done a lightening service. And because it starts off as a permanent hair color line, it tends to, the deposit tends to be a little bit stronger, which makes it last longer, which I really love. So we're just going to mix it, and you can see it's just a really nice, easy mix. It's very creamy. I don't need a lot of effort. I typically recommend mixing with a whisk, a non-metal whisk, but for purposes of today, we're going to just use our brushes. We're going to go through and apply from roots to ends and work this all the way through. And it saturates really, really easily. If you can tell, I'm not actually having any issues with my saturation. And then I'm going to move up to the next section. Alrighty. And with the tone softening mixing ratio, you only need about 10 minutes of deposit. So it's a really quick application. Typically behind the chair, the application I'm going to show you today, I would book out for about an hour. It doesn't need a ton of time. It's really, really fast. I think after the pandemic, we all really needed to learn how to maximize our time behind the chair for a couple of different reasons. We stopped being able to double book for quite a while. And clients kind of valued their time. We didn't want to be sitting in a closed space with people for extended periods of time like we did before. So this is a really great option for you, where most demi-permanents are about 20-minute development times. This one's a little bit faster. And make sure that you saturate right at the hairline. And if this client had a grow out of 2 inches, you can just apply on starting from the line of demarcation. And then work through with your fingers. However, if it's easier for you, you can always comb through. If someone has really thick hair or they have knotted hair and you want to make sure that we don't overly tangle, you can go through and comb really easily. I don't know if you guys have ever heard this, but I have a couple clients who have incredibly thick but very fine hair. And one of my clients told me as I was brushing her out in the bowl that she learned her hair type is called fairy hair, which I had never heard in my entire life as a hairstylist, but I thought it was really funny. So if your client has fairy hair, comb through it as you are doing your application. And then you want to make sure that you're really saturating the blondest parts. And for this mannequin, it's definitely in the front. She had been previously balayaged and foilaged. So I really want to make sure that those front light areas get saturated really, really well. And I just really was happy to utilize this mannequin because she was about a level 9, and I lifted her up with, like I said, foilage and balayage to over a level 10. And so this was the perfect candidate for us to showcase going darker. As you can see, I know I'm only working on one quadrant, but this was a super, super fast application. You can also do this at the bowl if it's easier for you. I would not recommend mixing this formulation in a applicator bottle just because it does use cream developers, and the tone softener is a little bit thicker, so it might get stuck in the bottle and you might lose some products. I mean, you can still do it, it's just you might be wasteful of product, and I know that that is very important to us to not do. All right, so we are done with that application. So, like I said, long gone are the days where we feel like we need to do multiple steps to pre-fill a client's hair. If you have a client who has really, really porous hair, I might increase the amount of warm tones that I'm putting in their hair as I'm depositing down, just to ensure that the reflection is there. But if you have a client whose hair is super healthy, this formulation will work really well. 1 part of your warm tone to 2 parts or to 4 parts of your tonal desired tonal direction. Okay. So as you can see, she's already depositing really, really well, and that's only been on for a few moments. And it's just a really useful tool for you to be able to utilize. And then we're going to bring her over here and showcase, there we go, what that looks like. So on this section, I only did our pre-tone, and this was the end result. Really, really nice, shiny, and the reflection is really nice. It's really rich, but as we mentioned before, we did put ash tones in there, but you wouldn't actually know that she was super, super blonde before because she took those ash tones so well. I hope that that is inspiring for you guys to get super creative with your formulations. So now we are going to go into what the low light technique is. And if you have a client who, you can use this application on just about anyone. I actually started utilizing this kind of pattern when I had a client who had been doing box hair dye at home, and we were trying to transition her out of that. So instead of putting more permanent hair color on her hair because it was a little dehydrated and damaged, I started utilizing our TBH as a demi-permanent and utilizing this color blocking technique to add some dimension back into our hair while keeping the hair health really well. And so this is going to be our pattern. So the back is all triangle sections. The whole thing's in triangle sections. If you can see, we have 2 small sections on the hairline at the nape of the neck. So that's going to be our negative space or our brightness. So when a client pulls their hair up, they're able to see some highlights still in their hair. And then we're going to do a large triangle reverse triangle in between those 2 highlighted sections for added depth. So when we think about hair, we want to think about where natural depth will live or where sun doesn't hit it. And that center section is exactly there. So we're going to do a reverse triangle there. And then we're going to leave a little veil out to keep some brightness throughout the middle section. And then we're going to do another triangle right above that because all of the depth is going to live there. We're going to have 2 triangles on either side of that because, again, we want to add some brightness if our client pulls their hair up. And then we're going to have our negative space right at the crown of the head so that it kind of creates a veil when the hair drops, and then two low lights on either, triangle low lights on either side. And then for the side section, if we kind of hit, because that's all the back that we just discussed, we're going to do a triangle section right above the ear. And then we're going to put a big low light right behind that, because that's, again, where depth is going to live. And then we're going to have two extra sections right on top, reverse triangles on top to add dimension. And then our peaks are going to add some highlights in between there, so that when the client moves, you're going to see lots and lots of movement with this. But we did this application in about 10 minutes. So it's really, really cool. And I'm actually going to showcase it with a root melt, because again, I am a lived-in color specialist. So we really want to, for me at least, I always want to have it look as soft and beautiful as possible. But if you wanted more of an impact, if you wanted your clients to really see those dramatic dimensions throughout, you can absolutely omit the root melt. But this is also a great opportunity for me to tell you that the the TBH line can be mixed as a permanent hair color, which is what it was originally formulated for, and then secondary to become a tone softener or a demi-permanent. So for this section, I'm going to showcase how I did the root melt, and it can be mixed one of two ways. So for the root melt, I wanted to add a ton of depth because we are going to do multiple different colors in here. So I really wanted to still be able to showcase the level 7 that we deposited in our first step. So I added 4-06 and 5-16, because remember, I really love that one, like that cool chocolate tone. And then I added in our level 4 for depth, and then natural for gray coverage. So you will get 100% coverage with TBH when utilized with 20 volume, but it's multidimensional color coverage. So what that means is every single strand of hair is permanently affected. However, the deposit and the lift changes depending on the canvas that the client came in with. So if someone has a white hair next to a very dark hair, the lift on the dark hair might not be as strong and uniformed with the white hair. So you're going to get coverage and color on both strands, but you're going to still see reflection between the two, which I actually really love. And I think it's super beautiful. My hair color is actually TBH. So you can see I actually have a ton of gray hair, but you wouldn't know that with TBH. It just has kind of a very natural effect, and you can utilize our warm tones to have a very natural looking redhead. So you can mix this. I mixed equal parts of our natural series and our tonal desired tonal direction with equal parts 20 volume. But if you wanted to do this as a true root melt, you can do the 6 volume activator lotion with equal parts tone softener, whichever one works best for you. And we're going to go in and mix our color again. Again, a very creamy line, so we don't have to worry about it being really clumpy or hard to mix. And I want to showcase, because I did do the tone root melt on the back, or coverage on the back. I wanted to showcase the difference between the two before I start. So hopefully you can see that. This side is just the pre-tone. So you can see how beautiful and even this actually is. Let's see if we can get that a little bit better. And then if you can tell, next to, I'm having a hard time with this. There we go. Okay. So if you can see, this coverage right behind it is where I did the root melt, added a lot more depth, but it still blended really beautiful into that 7 volume pre-tone that we did on the ends. So no harsh lines. I did comb through it just to break up that line of demarcation, but it's super beautiful and blended. And we're going to showcase the root melt really quickly, and then I'm going to showcase the color blocking technique. And this can be utilized with any shades, any series that you choose. If you are not a TBH or Schwarzkopf user, that's totally fine. But hopefully this is a technique that will be useful to you behind the chair. for fast applications. Like I said, I do this on a couple different people, but specifically, I think I kind of created this pattern for my one client that we were transitioning out of her at-home hair dye experience. And she was actually just in my salon the other day, and I told her we can finally add in some more highlights to her hair because her old grow out is completely gone. Alrighty. So for my root melts or my coverage, especially if I am doing low lights afterwards, highlights afterwards, or adding in color blocking technique, I always start at the top. It's personal preference, but I like everything to be nice and clean and easy for myself. So if I start at the top and work my way down with my root melt or my coverage, then I'm able to work up as I'm doing my placement for my highlights or my pattern of whatever I'm choosing. And it tends to be I tend to have a little bit more control, and it's a little easier for me and more pleasant for the client. Like I said, totally personal preference, but that tends to work for me. And then I also have more control with my application. So hopefully you can see this. Okay, I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna start more towards the back or this the center part of my client. I would probably do a 3 or 4 quadrant, so always block off the front and then either leave the back by itself for this type of technique, or if I was doing another one, I would do it into 4 sections. But I always like to start off in the back because I'm always going to drag my root melt down more throughout the back. So I want to be able to have control as I'm applying my root melt. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to be able to angle my application to mirror how I want my root melt to be. So if you see, because I took a diagonal back section, I'm applying less as I get towards the hairline or the money piece or the front frame where I always want more brightness. And then I'm able to drag it back more as I'm working through the back and the areas that I want more depth and dimension. You can see the saturation with this line is super easy. Very, very nice, very clean. And then I just do a little bit of a tap in the front. And then go and work my way up. And then I'm going to showcase how I did my sections. I already pre-sectioned off the back. Like I said, I had done the root melt back there just so that you guys didn't have to watch me do full head of all over color and root melts because that's like watching paint dry. I work behind the chair just like you, so I totally understand that sometimes the more simple applications are not always the most fun to watch. But we're just going to work our way through, keeping that angle of the brush so that it's at a little bit of a diagonal back, and then do our application. So I'm kind of pivoting as I am doing my application to ensure that the placement of my root melt or gray coverage, depending on how you're formulating it, is just easier for myself. And like I said, I truly love the TBH line for so many reasons. Very versatile. It's small but mighty. It mirrors what I do behind the chair typically. However, one of my favorite reasons that I love the TBH line is because we utilize the different color molecule or color pigment besides PPDs or PTDs. Because as we all know that some people have developed color sensitivity to PPDs and PTDs, and that could be due to overexposure. It could be that they were just always allergic to those pigments, but we created a color molecule called HEP HEP is really cool. It's a derivative of PPD. However, it's shaped differently. So if you think about color molecules, they're like tiny little round balls. And they go in and they deposit into the cortex of the hair due to the swelling and the alkalinity of the color that you've just mixed. However, we have T cell receptors all along our body, including our scalp. And when we apply color to our scalp, those PPDs can sit right into our T cell receptors. And our T cell receptors kind of like sit as like half cups, and they fit those color molecules right into them, and they're able to detect them very easily. And if they have any kind of color sensitivity, they're going to notice them and your body's going to have a reaction. HEP is shaped differently. So instead of it being a round circle, it's shaped like a hexagon. So it can't actually fit into the T cell receptors as easily. So your clients are much less likely to have a color sensitivity issue. I had a client recently who found me because she found out I was a Schwarzkopf salon, and she says she typically has less reactions to Schwarzkopf, but we started using TBH on her, and she said it's the first time in her life that she has not had color issues when getting a color service. So if you do have a client who has color sensitivity, this is truly the line for you. I always still recommend doing a color swatch test just to ensure, depending on the severity of their allergy. I just always like to cover my bases, but thus far, I've not had any issues with color sensitivity. Okay, so for this next section, we're going to go right into the color blocking technique, and we're going to utilize the canvas that we already have. So that level 7, we're going to leave out in some sections, and that's going to be considered our highlight. And then we're going to add in some depth and dimension right behind it in other color blocking techniques. So can't get our mannequin dirty because then it's just not fun. It doesn't show as well. All right, so for this formulation, I just utilized natural tones. I thought about adding kind of like a rich red beige tone to it to just add a little bit of fire. But like I said, I realized I really wanted to showcase that you can go natural and ashy tones without, even though your client started off very, very light. So I went with natural tones. I did equal parts 6-04 and 5-06. So all in our natural series. And you always know that it is a natural because it has an N next to the number in the series. And then they come in these kind of muted gray colors. So those are going to be in the natural series within the TBH line. And just like any other color line, even if you're used to using one with a lettering system versus a numbering system, anything that's the first number or before the dash is going to be the tonal depth or the level. And then anything after the dash is going to be the tonal direction. So for this one, it's a level 5, and then it's a natural. And then our 6 is our chocolate with a copper kind of reflect to it. They're really, really nice and beautiful, rich tones in here. And the reason why we add some warmth to our natural, so we have either a -06 or a -04. So natural chocolate or natural beige is because the entire line has a cendré undertone to it. And cendré is a blue violet. What that does is it gives kind of a powdery finish to the color, so it looks a little bit more natural. It also prevents the hair from being overexposed and allows it to have just kind of a more more control instead of it being warm. And then it also will help control the hair as it's fading out. So those are all the reasons why we do have a cendré undertone to it, but just keep that in mind. That's why there is a warm reflect as a secondary color in all of our naturals. Okay. So for our next application, we're going to be talking about color blocking. And I don't know if any of you guys do color blocking, but it's become very, very popular these days. So we're doing a lot more of it. So this section, I'm going to show you how I'm going to part it off. But in the back, I actually already parted off the section. So for this one, because we're going to create 3 triangles out of this section, I just blocked it off right around the occipital bone. And then I'm going to cut these 2 corners out and create triangles on either side, and then color block the center. And then we have a regular triangle right above the occipital bone, and we're going to create a veil behind that. Our 2 highlight section above our veil, which is going to stay pretty light as well. And then we're going to have our 2 lowlights on either side. So that's going to be our sectioning. And remember, this, if you're more of a visual person on a head sheet, I wanted to be able to give this. So this section I just left in one section. We have our depth right in the center, above and below the occipital bone, highlights on either side, our veil, and our lowlights surrounding it. And then I'm going to showcase how to do this very quickly here in a second. So for this one, I always take that front section up and out of the way and just leave it there. And then I'm going to go right above it and take another triangle. And you can kind of have as much fun as you want with this section. You can kind of add it kind of more as a diagonal forward, which I'm doing right here. So you have a lot more depth right behind the ear, or right above the ear. And the main point is to just have a shallow depth right in between the 2 highlight sections that we're going to do in the front, because you do want to kind of break that up a little bit. And then we're going to go in, and I also like to spray the hair primer in this section. However, I typically would do this on damp hair. You save on product, and it's just a much faster application. But we are just going to do it on dry today, just so it's easier for you guys to see from the virtual. And I like to use a double-sided brush, something that has a comb, when I'm doing panel applications like this, just so that I can quickly brush through as I'm doing my application. Do a quick stir. And like I said, we did all neutral colors for our deposit, because we already created the foundation and the tone that we wanted with the pre-toner, so we don't have to do a lot of work. So the naturals are going to be just fine, but you can be as creative as you want. If you had a redhead that you wanted to do some really funky, fun, maybe violet and rich reds next to coppers or mauves, something like that, that is totally fine as well. We're going to go through and do that, and then again with this next section. You can see how quick this application will be, even on a full head. I know that mannequins tend to have a little less hair, but this will be still a really fast application, even on a full head of hair. Always keep a towel nearby, because can't have our hands very messy. Okay. And I do this off of the center part almost always for a couple different reasons. But mostly because a center part's great for being able to have a lot of versatility with your pattern. So if I have it down the center part, the sectioning is going to keep it really nice and shallow for the highlights in the front. But if they do a deeper part, then it will add more dimension as I'm going through. So always think that through, like ask your clients how they wear their hair, so that you can really maximize what they like. Now, if they really wanted to see a lot of dimension and they still had a center part, I might switch up my pattern a little bit, and I might create a reverse triangle in the front, so that the deepest point for their highlight was a little bit wider at the part. However, for this one, I like to keep it really nice and shallow, so that way they have lots of dimension, lots of brightness right at the front, And then it kind of expands, and then that dimension is right above it, and it just gives a really nice seamless look for them. I'm going to take that section, that triangle section, and leave it out. And I'm going to take another triangle section right above it, and we're going to add some dimension here. And this is going to kind of create a veil. So our peaks are going to pop through with our highlights, and this is going to veil over it and create a softness with the dimension. And as you can see, I'm actually not sectioning anything off. This is such an easy application. It really doesn't need to have anything sectioned off. You can just kind of apply and lay down, as long as their hair doesn't have super contrasting colors. If they were like super blonde next to a red, I would say maybe section it off. But because we're in such the similar tonal family, there's no need to be able to do that. Okay, and then for the back, we're going to work from the bottom up again. And like I had mentioned, we are going to move this section out of the way, and that's going to be a highlight. We're going to move this section out of the way, and that's also going to be a highlight. And then this will be our application right now. Bring her up a little bit for you guys. This out of the way. And I feel like once you get more comfortable with these kind of sections, you don't necessarily have to do quite as many pre-sections. I like working in patterns. It's how my brain works. So I tend to make sure that I have at least a framework to be able to work a little bit faster. But this is such an easy application that once you get the pattern down, you don't necessarily have to. So we already have that root melt on their hair. And I'm just going to go through and pull the color from the roots to the ends, adding dimension. And as you can see, as we're veiling over, this is going to have that highlight, and this is going to have the dimension over it. So it's just going to marry and blend really, really well together. And then quick, fast applications. And we are almost done with this, and I'm going to showcase the end results very, very quickly. If this was a blonde and I wanted to do kind of a color blocking technique, you can mix TBH one more type of way, and that is as a demi color, and that's for levels 8 or lighter. So we do have an 8 series and a 9 series, and you can mix that with 2 parts of our 6 volume activator lotion. So instead of mixing it 1 part activator lotion to 1 part tone softener, as we do when we're going darker or tone on tone levels, you can just use the 6 volume at double the developer, and that will act like a demi-permanent. All right, so for this one, we're going to create a veil so that we still do have some brightness throughout this section. And then we're going to color this whole triangle dark. Because again, color does not, or brightness does not necessarily live in the center of the hair. So we're just trying to keep it as natural looking as possible with pops of color for dimension. And again, if this client was damp, which I tend to mix, would tend to do a low light with demi on damp hair. This the spreadability is even easier than it is, although I do feel like the application and spreadability is still very, very easy, even on dry hair. Perfect. And then there's only 2 more sections that we are going to color. So we're going to leave this section out as a highlight, and we're going to leave this section out as a highlight. And then right above it, we have 2 more sections that we are going to highlight, or sorry, low light. So we're going to leave this center section out as a veil of brightness. And these are much smaller sections, so it doesn't overpower the brightness that we're trying to capitalize. Go through, make sure that it's evenly saturated. Sorry that I have landscapers downstairs blowing leaves, so forgive the noise if you can hear it. And this next section over here is also going to be a low light. I almost got done with the class before they came, so sorry about that, guys. And typically this would already have a root melt applied, so they would be really easy to marry into each other, but just make sure that that line of demarcation is not there as you're doing your application. Okay. And then voila, we are done. So you can see how easy that application is. You can see the pops of dimension that we're adding in, the pops of lightness that'll stay in, and then same thing on this side. So with that being said, that is pretty much the application. You can see how much depth, now that we've spent about 30 minutes doing this application from start to finish, how dark this has been able to get, how much coverage that we were able to get. Once you rinse that off, she's going to be that beautiful level 7 that she is over here. And then the low lights and root melt will just blend and marry all of these pretty beautiful colors together from there. Alrighty. So if you guys have any questions about TVH or about the application, please type them in the chat box. I'm happy to answer any of them. Also, if you were watching this on the replay, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have on my Instagram. Just direct message me at SF Hair Society, and I would love to connect with you and see if you guys are doing this look behind the chair, if you guys really loved it. So with that being said, I did do a full mannequin to be able to showcase the look from finished look instead of it being all these different quadrants. So hopefully you can see that. I'm going to bring her up and closer to you guys. And perfect. So already you guys can see before I even bring her close to the camera, like all of the dimension that we were able to achieve with this. Sorry, guys. My mannequin is not wanting to. Okay, well, that's fine. We're going to take her off of the tripod. All right. So still have that pop of color in the front. The only thing I did differently with this mannequin versus this one, I did the exact same formulation. I did the exact same color placement, did the same root melt, did everything. However, the only difference I did was for the pre-tone, I did apply it on damp hair instead of dry. And the reason being is because I wanted to showcase the difference between the two. So you can kind of see sitting next to her that this front section is a little bit brighter than this level 7. Not by much, but just a touch. So if you wanted more of a translucent deposit versus a very strong deposit, true level 7 deposit, put it on damp hair, put your pre-tone on damp hair. You can do that at the bowl, super easy. Let it sit for 10 minutes and rinse it out. But if you wanted true deposit, go on dry hair. And like I said, if someone has a lot of porosity issues and you're really trying to do a lot of coverage, I tend to be a little bit more weary with their hair. So sometimes they can take a little bit stronger if they have porosity issues. So in order to combat that, I might recommend someone who has really bad porosity issues that might grab the pigment a little too fast, put it on damp hair, but everyone else is super healthy. Make sure that you can put it on dry hair, whatever, to ensure coverage. And yeah, this just beautiful dimension. You can see right in the front that highlight sitting next to that low light and that blended kind of root melt between the level 4 and 5. And then same thing throughout here. You can see our little peaks and our valleys of dimension, our veil from behind to create brightness, and then all of the dimension that we have underneath. And I think that she turned out really beautiful. It's super fast application from start to finish, from the pre-tone to the root melt and the color blocking technique, development time, and then blow dry. Should take you an hour and 15 minutes max. If you are mixing it all demi or tone softener. If you are using the root coverage as a permanent hair color, then you're going to need the full 35 to 45 minutes development time to ensure maximum coverage and gray blending or gray coverage. So just keep that in mind. If you are doing it as a permanent color on the root, just add an extra 30 minutes to this application for development time. Well, I hope that you guys enjoyed this. Like I said, I think that this is just a really fun and easy application, especially in darks. I tend to not want my clients to look too flat. And as a brunette, that can happen very easily if we're just doing root coverage and filling through the ends. This is a great technique to be able to utilize to add some dimension without putting in a ton of work behind the chair. So I hope that you enjoyed the class. And if you have any questions for me, type them in the chat box. And you can also reach out to me at SF Hair Society on Instagram. Again, my name is Amanda Belian, and I am an educator with the Schwarzkopf Professional Ask Education team. And if you want to hear more about Schwarzkopf, or if there are specific classes that you guys want from us, techniques, color placements, cutting techniques, anything like that, message the Salon Republic team and let them know. And I'm sure that they'd be happy to kind of cater a class specifically to your needs and what you would like. But with that being said, I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful Monday. And I'm so grateful that you guys were able to spend time with me today. And I will talk to you all soon and see you on the next one.